North Carolina's men's basketball team is big. Texas A. Number 2 UNC is out of the NCAA tournament after number 7 A. The Aggies' average height, 6'7", with 4 key rotation players 6'10" or taller, forced the Tar Heels' average height, about 6'6", with no big men on the floor for much of the game, to play a game they didn't want to play. UNC couldn't handle it. The most stunning thing was that it was over by halftime. The Aggies led by 14 then, and the only reason the deficit seemed manageable is that North Carolina is North Carolina, with all its aura and postseason inexperience. In hindsight, the Heels had almost no chance at even making this game close. To do that, they'd have had to play outside themselves. North Carolina isn't a great shooting team. The Heels' offense is great. It was 4th in the country in opponent-adjusted efficiency this year, but their success is built around rebounding. Dating back at least to his days at Kansas in the early 2000s, Roy Williams has always coached elite offensive rebounding teams. That's the byproduct of recruiting lots of big, talented players and also prioritizing glass crashing year in and year out. This year's team was number 3 in offensive rebound rate. The 4th year in a row UNC was in the top 5 nationally in that critical stat. About 4 in 10 UNC misses found their way back into Carolina Blue hands, so the Heels could afford to not be knockdown shooters. To that point, they didn't totally shut out UNC, but the Heels lost on second-chance points, 9-6. Without that huge edge benefiting them, the Heels had to make lots of shots, and A. Williams' teams never do, because why shoot from distance when you're big enough and athletic enough to get better looks at the rim? For the year, 35% of the Heels' shots from the field came from beyond the arc. The difference between their usual frequency of threes and their frequency Sunday is the same as the difference between being the country's 245th most three-happy team out of 351 and about 100th. Playing from way behind in the second half didn't help that ratio. Here, in one video, is why UNC had such a hard time with A. That's not the only reason they lost, but it's the reason they got obliterated so thoroughly. The Aggies have flaws, but being big could take them a long way. They'll have a hard matchup in the Sweet 16. Joining them in a West Region semifinal in Los Angeles will be number 3 Michigan, which has a different makeup than North Carolina. The biggest difference is that the Wolverines are more comfortable shooting tons of threes, even though they aren't great at making them, 36%, 117th in the country. Coach John Beilein rarely puts more than one post player, 6'11" Moritz Wagner, on the court at a time, and even then, Wagner's more of an inside-out big than a classic back-to-the-basket type. With a talented trio of 6'10" guys, Tyler Davis, Robert Williams, and Tony Troca Morelos, the Aggies will again be positioned to control the paint. Maybe the Wolverines will flush enough threes to win, but maybe they won't. The Aggies are in the Sweet 16 for the second time in 3 years after making 3 in their entire history before that. Billy Kennedy has built his program from the middle out. It might be enough to make this march even more special than it already is.